Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Broke Theater Ushers podcast. The show where two former theater ushers talk about and review movies, TV shows, or just whatever you really feel like talking about. I'm one of your hosts, Sam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Araceli.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
I'm good.
You feeling okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So since this is our very first episode, I think we should tell you guys a little bit about ourselves and just what we kind of like in terms of films and genres and stuff like that. So, just to get a little bit to know about us, we've been together for 4 years now, and we met working in a movie theater. Ever since then, we just had our favorite pastime being watching movies and TV shows, and even after we stopped working there, we just enjoyed it so much that it's just kind of become our hobby and favorite pastime of just watching a movie and discussing it. And it's gotten to the point where we just decided, hey, why not share our opinions with the world if you feel like it. So we were also recommended by a couple of our friends to do it. So if you don't like our show, blame them. So, yeah, so that's about it for that, our background. But also just to kind of give you a better idea of some of our favorite films that we kind of like to enjoy. I think we're just going to go through some of those just to help you get a better idea of like what kind of films do we prefer watching or liking and stuff like that, and maybe some kinds that we don't really care about. So and then after that we're going to talk about the newest MCU movie, Black Widow. And I'll leave time codes in the description, so if you don't want to hear all that other stuff, then if you want to just listen to Black Widow and talk about that, you can just go to the timestamp down below. And it will also be for that all spoilers, so it won't be a non-spoiler review, it'll just be all spoilers. So, and we figured we just do all spoilers because, well, if you want to listen to somebody else's opinions on it, it would rather just be easier to listen to somebody talk about the whole movie rather than bits of it. So watch the movie first and then come back to this. So
cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of our favorite movies. Do you want to go first?
Hi, guys. It's Araceli. Yeah. I'm pretty simple. My top 3 are Titanic, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and 500 Days of Summer. These are all movies I can quote, I can watch whenever it comes on, or I own on DVD and I can put it on myself. So if it's sad romantic movies, that's my genre to go to.
That's your favorite genre is romance movies?
Sad romance movies.
Oh, it's sad, so it has to end terribly.
Yeah, tragic.
Otherwise, terrible.
Not terrible, but I won't watch it.
So, for me, I'm kind of a big nerd. So, I like my sci-fi, movies and, mostly comic book movies. I'm a comic book fan. I read comic books a lot. And, so I'm a big fan, obviously, of the MCU. So, those are usually my go-to movies. But I also like, just some dramas as well. Like I like my fancy art house movies as well. But
shout out to A24.
Yes. Shout out to A24. But yeah, I like my superhero movies though. So watching Black Widow is like a requirement for me.
Also, I hadn't watched any MCU movies up until I met Sam. So I am not too familiar with Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, so forgive me if I'm a little stupid.
It's alright.
But we'll get into that.
Yeah, well, just to give a quick example, some of my favorite movies are like your typical, I love, Empire Strikes Back, big Star Wars guy. I really love Avengers Endgame. Dark Knight's probably my favorite film ever made, but I also like your Back to the Futures, Old Boy. That's a very good one, and Toy Story 2 is like one of my favorite animated films ever made. Incredibles is up there, so I like a whole bunch of random films, but obviously, like I said before, superhero movies are my bread and butter.
And we can link our letterbox just so you guys.
Yeah,
we are.
Yeah, we have a bunch of lists. Our favorite films, our worst films, all the lists that we've seen together. So if you go to the films list, it'll be just my list. So like, I think it's like over 600 films in that list. But if you go to like actual lists, it'll be, and it'll say like Araceli and Sam's film list, and that's like in the 300s or something. So
yeah, we rank them out of 1 to 10.
Yeah, we rank them out of 1 to 10, but since Letterboxd is out of 5 stars, we just do the half stars as obviously just you double it, and that's what it is. So
yeah.
But yeah, so, and as well, when we rank Black Widow, we'll be doing it just typical out of 10. It'll basically just be 1 out of 10, god awful, just no merit at all. 2 out of 10, very, like, obviously really bad, but, you know, maybe you got some enjoyment out of it. Like, some of our favorites is like The Room is like a perfect 2 out of 10, where it's like so bad it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
3 out of 10 is just pretty, you know, it's just terrible. It's, you know, maybe just 1 or 2 things you might have liked in it, but overall it's just mostly bad.
You'll get the gist.
Yeah.
It just goes from there.
Yeah, so.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's really it about us, about our background, so.
We're excited. We've been talking about this for a really long time, and we're doing this, frankly, because the pandemic really put a bummer on halting movies, and, you know, just looking back on other things, it was just like we appreciate how much we.
Because what was the first movie? Because the last movie we saw before the pandemic was
a Ben Affleck film.
It was The Way Back with Ben Affleck.
Oh, not a good way to end going to the movie theater.
It wasn't terrible.
It wasn't bad. We will not review that.
No, we won't. Maybe like 3 years later.
No, not even.
But the first movie we saw after the pandemic was Minari, the movie with Steven Yeun and stuff like that. That was really good. That was that was a very
since the theaters opened up, we've seen Minari, we've seen
A Quiet Place
2, and then the latest is
we just saw Black Widow.
I
would have loved to have done Fast 9.
Stop saying that. We're never doing that.
You don't want to see John Cena?
No, I'm good.
No? As Dom's brother? Vin Diesel's brother, even though they look nothing alike?
No. I'm totally fine.
Alright. So I guess we could get into it. We could talk about Black Widow. I guess first, just so you kind of get a background of how we feel about the MCU overall, we can kind of discuss that first before, since this is like literally the newest Marvel movie overall. So, as I said before, I'm a big comic book fan. I love the MCU overall. I think they're some of my favorite movies of all time. And the worst ones are just, for the most part, they're just kind of okay movies. They're not terrible, not the worst. I think the only one that is bad, I think a lot of people can agree with me, is Thor: The Dark World. I think that's the only one that is bad, just because that is the most generic one out of all of them. That is the one where when I look back on it, I'm just like, it's just so boring. It's really boring, and there's nothing inspiring in it, and it's just.
I don't know what he's talking about.
So that's how I feel about that. But I would say some of my favorites are, like, my favorite overall is Endgame. That one we saw Thursday night premiere when it came out, and that probably has to be one of the best movie going experiences I think we had, was that movie, because that was the only one I think where we were only surrounded by fans of the movies, like just like the hardcore MCU fans. Like there was people in costumes and stuff like that, and it was really fun to see all of them, and like it was just a blast. Like everyone, it was peak. Like that was the right audience to see it with, and everybody was respectful. There was no just crying babies, which is what we experienced in Black Widow. But it's like, you know, just, you know, stuff like that. But like everybody was respectful about it, and they all cheered and went nuts over it, and yeah, it was really good, and that I would say that helped with the experience, but it's still also a very good movie in my opinion.
Yeah.
Also some of my favorites, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think is severely underrated. I don't know why everyone thinks that one is worse than the first film, or is just one of the lower tier Marvel movies. I don't know why.
I worked through that movie.
It's definitely the funniest one.
And I had a blast every time cleaning the theater to the David Hasselhoff song.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the only, or not the only, but the first movie that really got me into actually giving a shot to these movies.
Because that was the first one that we saw. Because not too long after we started dating, was when I told you, obviously, like what I'm into and stuff like that. And I think the first one that you saw at my place was the first Guardians movie. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, it was good. It was enjoyable. What'd you say?
It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. And then
I do like it. It's just that Guardians 2, like,
and then we went to
has
see
the spot in my heart.
So I basically showed her the first one to because I was going to see the second one, and she wanted to go see it with me. So I said, then you should probably watch the first one then. And I showed her the first one. She thought it was fine. Then we saw the second one, and
I've been hooked since then. So I'm giving all these movies a shot now.
Yeah. So that's one of my personal favorites. I think that movie is hysterical, and there's sense of where it's emotional, and obviously and stuff like that. I think Yondu dying in that movie is probably the most.
Whoa! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Anyway, I think that movie. I think his death in that movie is probably the most emotional one so far, because he's the only one so far who's been dead and stayed dead, other than obviously the other ones in Endgame. But that's another one of my favorites. I also love obviously Infinity War and Winter Soldier and the first Iron Man movie. I think that's one of my favorites. I watched that a whole bunch as a kid, and I was probably like, close to 10 when the movie came out, and I didn't watch it in theaters, but I watched it at home all the time, and so that like movie's like ingrained into my brain. So, but I still love that film to this day. I watched it a couple months ago, and it still holds up in my opinion. But to your opinion, you think the opposite of that.
Of
Iron Man.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into Black Widow. I don't want to. I don't want people hating me on.
Well, why don't you give some of your opinions? Like, what's some of your?
Well, yeah, like there's no denying they're just like really fun, enjoyable, well done films for sure. I don't know. I definitely like Guardians 2 for just it's got the whole package for me, and I mean nothing against people who like Iron Man or Captain America or whoever. It's just wasn't necessarily my cup of tea of movies, but like I do like the Spider-Man films with Tom Holland, obviously. I'm looking at your poster now because I'm trying to like pinpoint the characters in movies.
I have a big. We're recording in the back of my room, and I have a big Marvel poster from like 2005 of like comic accurate of like literally characters lifted from the pages of all the characters. You probably don't recognize half of them because they're in their actual costumes as opposed to the movie costumes.
Right, but yeah, I give them a shot. That's all I can really say, and I do enjoy them for the most part, and I will watch them opening night, regardless if I don't know their background.
So, what would you say other than Guardians 2 is like, because I know you really love, or you loved WandaVision.
Yes. We will not take WandaVision slander on this podcast or anywhere. Yeah, I don't have any words. I truly am so sad that it ended. And really mad it's just a mini series.
Well,
yeah, she is coming back, but she's not getting her season 2.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. WandaVision is like probably the best thing I think that's come out of Marvel. It's different. It's extremely... I think Elizabeth Olsen does the best homage to that character. And definitely Paul Bettany as the Vision. I think they just work so well together, and I'm just so glad that they got...
Which one would you say is better? Guardians 2 or WandaVision, the other one?
No, you can't pin them against each other. I like them for different reasons. But I think both things hold up like emotionally well.
Yeah.
I think that it definitely hits people in the heart. I think that it's not cheesy. I think it's very authentic feelings of grief and just wanting to be a part of family, a family.
Yeah. I definitely do think the newest phase of Marvel is definitely doing something a lot different, and that's what makes me excited. Is because I like when comic book properties are making stuff that are just it doesn't have to be one-to-one with the books, but it has to capture the spirit of it, and that's for the most part they're all fun and they're and they're wacky and goofy. And I think the MCU has been slowly but surely, and now we kind of reached that point of just silliness. I think we've seen it now recently. This was before we were recording this before the last episode of Loki, but like Loki as a whole has just been like additionally like on top of WandaVision, just like the wackiest shit you will ever see. It's so goofy and comic and I think that attributes to what makes it such an enjoyable show. I'm glad that it feels like Marvel's not holding back in that sense as well.
Yeah. I wish we had done this podcast when WandaVision was coming out. Oh, yeah. You just would probably hear me cry for 20 minutes and then start getting into it.
It would just be...
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, you want to get into Black Widow?
Well, is there any aspects of the Marvel movies that you don't like? Is there anything that you're just like...
Honestly, I feel like I'll bring that up when we talk about Black Widow. But I think the only reason I can't probably enjoy Captain America, Iron Man, like all those earlier movies is just because like I am like, you don't have to read comics. Well, I mean, it obviously helps to like, connect to these characters and whatnot, but like it's just overwhelming. And I didn't watch these movies consistently or like out of order. So I definitely had to try to remember a lot of movies and storylines before, Infinity War and Endgame. So, yeah, like I think that's the only thing that holds me back personally is just I'm like I don't know what the hell is going on. Like pause and explain. But
definitely said to her before we should just do a marathon watch of all of them. She's been putting it off.
Yeah.
She does this thing where she goes like, yeah, sure, and then like a day will go by, and then a week will go by.
Because
go by.
We're watching other movies that are being suggested.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about it then?
Yes.
Are you ready to move on?
I'm so excited to talk about it.
All right. So this is I guess we could say our review of Black Widow. This is all spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, just go watch it. It's in theaters now.
Streaming on Disney Plus.
It's on Disney Plus. Just
$30.
And I say just like it's like it's no big deal. It's $30. Like it's definitely worth a lot. But yeah, so this is a spoiler review. Just if you haven't seen it yet, or if you don't care about, if you have seen it, or if you just don't care about spoilers, then all right, then that's fine. That's up to you, I guess.
I just have to say that I don't even think I watched a trailer for Black Widow, so I went in completely unbiased. Also, like I said, I didn't watch or really care for Iron Man and Captain America. So like I didn't really get to see Natasha's introduction, build up, whatever. So anything from like the Avengers movies is that's where I've seen her, and that's where I got my intro from her. So yeah, I went into this movie just like I don't know what to expect. I was very neutral. Like I wasn't expecting anything amazing or not anything worse. I just went into it wondering what it was going to be like.
I just went into it thinking, well, obviously it's another MCU movie, so I'm excited to see it, but at the same time, I don't think any of the trailers really wowed me. I share similar opinions with many other people. I've seen other people review it and read their people's opinions, and I do think this is a movie that has been long overdue. I think when people were asking for a solo movie for this character, it should have been at least like 5 years ago, or when people were actually asking for it. And now it's just kind of like, spoilers, I guess, for Endgame, but like she dies in it. She dies in like the middle of the movie, and so it's just kind of bittersweet that the fact that they made this movie as like a semi prequel that takes place before Endgame, because we know that she's gonna, I don't even think like the idea of just like like, will she die in this movie? Obviously not. She's the main character. She's not gonna die. But I just mean in the sense of like oh, they could make more movies from this franchise or anything like that.
No, she's a one and done.
Yeah, this definitely feels like a one and done, or if they are, like, they're not planning on it for at least the next few more years. But yeah, like this, like I think this should have been switched. I was watching a video and somebody said like this would have made more sense if they switched this with Captain Marvel. Because I feel like with Captain Marvel, they made that movie with the intention of getting people to see that movie because she was going to be an Endgame. I think that was really the whole kind of crux behind it, instead of like just they obviously marketed it as well as like this is our first female-led superhero movie, but I think also was like kind of like I do remember the end credits of Infinity War where Nick Fury hits the little oh my god, I forget what they're called. They're old, but like, oh my god, I forget what they're called. But like a little device thing. What was that?
Beeper.
That's what I was gonna say, but I feel like I was gonna be wrong. But yeah, a little beeper thing, and then obviously her logo showed up and stuff like that. And so people were like, oh, like I'm gonna have to watch this movie and understand the next one. And it's like you really didn't have to. You just had to understand that like she liked Nick Fury, and she's powerful, and that's really kind of it. And then she goes up into space, and then that's why she's not. She goes up into space. And that's why she's away for like 20 years in the MCU canon, and then she's not around for Thanos and anything else. That's really it. That's really her importance in that movie. And I feel like if you switched it, Black Widow with that movie, then it would have given her, her death much more, not only just surprise, but much more like, oh, I actually grew to like this character much more. Because in the previous movies, she was just kind of. Like, she's enjoyable. She's badass. She's a fun character to watch.
She feels very reserved. But
yeah, you felt like, she had more potential than, than they were letting her have. And, so I feel like in that sense, it would have been better if we had seen this in 2019 and then,
which if is anything, the general consensus.
Yeah, because then if anything, if you then just introduce Captain Marvel in the last movie in Endgame, you wouldn't be really missing that much, other than just knowing that like, oh, she has an attachment to Nick Fury and that's how she got here.
I guess that's for WandaVision.
Yeah, so it's like that's just kind of it, like that's all you really need to know, and then if you want to make her next movie be an explanation of like how how they met stuff like that, then that would have been fine. It would have been better, but that's not what they did.
No, not at all. This is a movie that came out 11 years too late.
Yeah, way too late. But well, they made it now.
I mean,
it's here
it is
now.
what it is. It's here.
So Yeah, so that was my thoughts going into it. I was just expecting just another Marvel movie and stuff like that, and I think for the most part, it does check off all the checklist. Um, I would say overall, this is a good movie. This is a very good Marvel movie overall. I did have a really good time in watching it. I thought the cast all across the board was very well done. I think, Florence Pugh and obviously David Harbour were standouts as Yelena and Red Guardian. What else is there? I did like the tone. I liked the tone a lot. I liked how this felt more like Winter Soldier in terms of it was a darker, more serious movie, and they dealt with themes that we hadn't quite seen in a Marvel movie before. That really elevated that character, and really gave her a sense of like she went through some shit. She went through some very
stuff.
traumatic stuff.
Yeah, and if you've seen the film,
therapist.
Yes, they all should. But you definitely those opening credits, like everyone is talking about, and for good reason. It's bone chilling.
Yeah.
For me, at least, it was very disturbing to watch. It was gritty.
Yeah.
And it's just overall really sad, and like because this does happen in real life, and this is a spoiler movie, so spoiler review. So
they basically do they show scenes of human trafficking and child trafficking and stuff, and
it's her being
it was basically it's just her and her. I say in quotes, younger sister. They're not related by blood.
Yelena.
But Yelena. Basically, they were indoctrinated into this program. Not indoctrinated. They were kidnapped as kids.
They were forced.
They were forced
to as kids.
And they were forced
to
just be brainwashed into this program, and
the little killing machines. That's what they are.
Turn to killing machines, and you see scenes of them being shoved
brainwashed and trained to kill.
You're also just shoved into giant crates and stuff, and
Marvel did not hold back. I was in my seat, like looking at, like trying to see other people's faces, because I was like, oh my god.
Because this is apparently the second movie, the second MCU movie to use an actual introduction opening sequence. Because the first one was the Incredible Hulk, and they used that as a way to basically kind of brush over this version of the character's origin story, which is basically just, he's a scientist, he's a guy, he experimented on himself and then he turned to a giant green rage monster. Didn't need to make the whole movie about that, so they just breezed through it, and it made the movie that much better, because then it's like, I'm actually seeing the origin story, and and then we're back into the original story. And I feel like instead of just telling it. So I feel like that's what made this so much better, is that instead of just telling us like, oh, we were human trafficked and, we had to be a bunch of shipping cranes, or we had to do a bunch of terrible stuff, and they still do that, but they actually do show it in this opening sequence, which I really do appreciate.
Not only just that, but I can, after watching that, I would go I would go ballistic on people too if, they made me go through that. I can feel and understand her rage, her just resilience, and why she is who she is.
Yeah.
And especially introducing Yelena to that.
Because especially it's even more, because you even get the sense because you even get the sense of the opening of the movie that Natasha's been was more or less ready for this day to come for her to be put into this program where she's been through it before, and she's just undercover, whereas Yelena was just so young that to her, she's a
baby. Yeah, she's just I think
they said she was 6 or something in that.
Yeah, you don't know
in that part. So it's Like, you really don't know. So to her, it was, like, technically real, but, like,
Yeah, Natasha was really her sister, and
yeah.
David Harbour and
Rachel Weisz,
were her parents.
Yeah. So, I think speaking of just her really quick, we can talk about the others real quick. I think Rachel Weisz was probably the only one who was kind of underdeveloped or just kind of underused. She's a very good actress. She's been in a bunch of stuff. She's like, she's been nominated. I think she's even won Oscars and stuff like that. Like, she's a very good actor. And I feel like she was just kind of, she played a part well, but I feel like, they probably could have saved her for a better part for another movie, but, like, the way they used her in this was just kind of, she's just kind of there. She just plays the mother role.
Like, tender, loving.
Not loving, but more just kind of, just...
Caring.
Yeah.
Caring, there we go.
Yeah, but in that sense. So I feel like they could have used her better, but, she wasn't terrible in it, I don't think. But
I don't think that anyone did terrible.
Yeah, no, yeah. I don't think there was not one bad performance in this whole movie, which I think I can say is the same across the board for all MCU properties. The chick who casts these movies and shows does amazing. I think her name is Sarah Finn. I think that's her name. She has been doing all the casting since the very first Iron Man movie, and she has nailed...
That's why she has her job still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She has nailed every single time.
She is bringing in the billions.
Oh, yeah. She has nailed it every single time. So I think, I literally cannot think of anybody who was miscast in this franchise as of thus far.
I think the biggest... I just want to talk about just what, like, left an impression on me is just... it's so dark. Like, yeah. I thought it was super violent.
This reminded me a lot of, like, this is, like, it's sort of like light Daredevil. Yeah. In a sense, which you have watched.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Like, it deals with the same themes, but it's not presented as brutally, I would say.
It's not as brutal, but it's still enough to, like, walk out of the theater, like, being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. First of all, like, it's Marvel, but not only that, but they're owned by Disney now, and it's like they greenlighted this shit. They're like, yes,
they did.
Put it out on Disney Plus. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, they have that much trust in Marvel that they're allowed to do that. Because I think even if you look back on the previous shows, like, just, like the fact that Falcon and Winter Soldier dealt with a lot of just, like, racial stuff and stuff that's, like, especially
what reflects into our real world,
and what really, especially in today's climate, like, just that's very,
I'm glad they went there. Yeah, I'm glad they went there.
Yeah. They didn't just ignore it or just kind of subtly hint at it. Like, maybe, some people are kind of racist. It's like, no, they made, like, half the plot was, should Sam Wilson, the black man, be Captain America?
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm glad, and
we love you, Anthony Mackie.
Yeah, and depending on, how, what you think about that is up to you. But, like, the fact that I think they were willing to address it is at least something to, give them some credit that they're not just blindly, just like, oh, and he, this guy's Captain America and everyone's okay with it. Like, no. Because that's almost like a reflection of what happened in the comic books where
they glossed over it.
No. Well, he took up the mantle, but, like, it was like the actual fan, like, people were just mad. Because that was around the time when they were really, I think this was around the time, it was like 2014, 2013, when this was around, when Marvel really started rebranding, and, like, you could obviously tell that they were setting things up for, so, like, we can introduce these characters in future installments. Like, they were just making new characters and stuff just so that way, like, or new mantles or new ideas so that way they can kind of introduce that. I'm not saying that, like, that's a bad thing. I think a lot of them are fine and, even enjoyable, but, like, just, you can kind of tell that it was less of, like, because a lot of people were just mad at, it was like, they're like, oh, it's just SJW, they're trying to be woke movement shit, and it's just like, no, they're clearly just trying to make new stuff so that way they can, make new franchises in the future.
Yeah.
Like, this was like after Avengers became a $1 billion movie, and they were like, oh, this is a franchise now. Like, this is going to stick for a while, so let's make some. And we know these actors won't be, around forever, so let's make some new characters, make some new franchises.
Well, like I said, I didn't know what I was going to get into when watching Black Widow, but I was really not expecting it to go where it did. And maybe that's partially of my ignorance on, like, her background of, like, this tortured spy, this poor soul of, like...
I really had to tell you before to even, like, address in movie that, because I think at one point, it was, like, during the scene when they're sitting down and just having a chat. It was, like, towards the beginning of the movie. And Yelena asked her, like, like, do you ever wish that you had kids? Or then she was, she gave her response. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I remember. And then I leaned to you and I was like, they're sterile. And you looked at me like, what?
They're sterilized, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, because that was a plot point. Or, not a plot point, but that was, like, something that was brought up in Avengers 2 is that they forced them all to be sterile.
Sterilized,
yeah, so.
Yeah, like, that's just a really barbaric, just like what they do to these little girls.
Although I think the way to present in that movie was awful. I think the way that, like, the point that they're trying to get across in that movie was not the way it was intended.
The joke that Elena did with David Harbour's character.
No, not even that. Like, when she explains it, because they bring it up in Avengers 2 that she's sterilized, and they bring it up in a way that's just like it's just kind of not kind of, it is offensive, where they basically just force this relationship between Black Widow and the Hulk, and she thinks that they would be fine together because she views themselves as both monsters, and he's just like, why do you think you're a monster? Like, yes, you kill people, but, like, like, I'm a literal, like, if I get angry, I can go on a rampage and just murder anybody just by being angry. And she's like, well, and it really becomes less of, like, like, oh, I kill a lot of people, and more of, like, oh, I can't have kids, which is something I really want to do, but I can't, so that makes me a monster. And it's just like, this was definitely written by a dude. Like, it's just, who just so not thinks only that, like,
is this
if you
movie 11 years late,
yeah, so, like, you definitely think if you can't have kids, then that makes you just a terrible human being. Even though
but that
you
is
were forced to.
No, but that is a reflection in real life of how, your status as a woman, or just, like, how people, like, you're assumed to, like, your role as a woman is to eventually, and that's what, like, also, like, just coming from a lot of people, unfortunately, of, like, whether you can have kids or not, and that makes you less of a woman if you can't. So I don't,
or even just a human being.
Well, I mean, males can't have kids.
Well, no, yeah, I just mean, like, like, she's literally she's literally comparing herself and the idea to being the Hulk. And it's like, I think being the Hulk's kind of two different, like, not being able to have kids and being the Hulk's, like,
So what did you, what were the points in the movie that you did appreciate, you did like, you think that gave
did or didn't?
Did. That made you give the rating that you did.
Well, she's just referring to, because I already rated it on Letterboxd.
We both rated it.
But I really liked, again, how dark the movie was. I think, like we were saying earlier about the whole Avengers 2 thing, I liked how they took that idea of her being sterilized and took it less as obviously just, oh, she's a monster because, she can't have kids or a family, and more of what is actually, like, what is, the problem with that, which is that she was just forced to do it against her will because, this fucking piece of shit just, just did the same thing to, a bunch of other girls and women and, and stuff like that. And then I like that idea that, you know, we go more to the history, and, you know, it can, you know, like, you know, I did hear like criticisms of that joke specifically that you're referring to, which is, you know, Florence Pugh just, you know, when David Harbour, you know, they rescue David Harbour from prison, you know, he's just like, you know, like, why are you so grumpy? You know, they do a time of the month. You know, she's like, we can't have, you know, time of the months. We, you know, our uteruses are out. They cut our uteruses out. We can't get no periods.
Okay, first of all, she did not say it like that at all, and she had a better Russian accent than you. No, no, she's just saying that, like, dude, like, I can't, like, I'm not mad. Like, if anything, like, I can't have my period because I don't have a uterus. I don't have fallopian tubes. I don't, like, they literally ripped everything out of me.
I see how people's problem would be, you know, I think it's less of, like, because the whole point of what makes it a joke is that, you know, she kind of keeps going on, and, you know, and then I think the problem people have is David Harbour just treating it like, you know, any other, like, just, you know, if you told your dad about your period and he's just like, la la la, not listening. Like, I think that's what people have a problem with, instead of just, like, you know, if she had just kept going and then David Harbour's reaction was like blank face, like, just like, oh. I think
it's also whoops. Because if you like look at these two characters, they go through so much shit that I think they're just desensitized.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not so, but like they're definitely like it definitely, like, because they bring it up. Yeah. They bring up about whether, you know, Yelena asks Natasha if she ever wanted to become a mom, and we get that whole conversation. But yeah, moving aside from the dark and the grittiness, well, more into it, the villain of the movie,
okay,
100% hate him.
Well, let's just first, before we go into that, what did you think of
sure,
like, what's your side of things
with
what did you think of the cast and stuff? I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I think everyone did such a good job. I think, of course, Scarlett Johansson, like, nails her role as
famous Asian cosplayer. Scarlett Johansson.
Stop. We don't have to get into that. Yeah, but if it has to be her. But no, I think she does a good job. Everybody is saying Florence Pugh, such a standout. Definitely, for me, the highlight of the movie, and rightfully so, because she will definitely be seeing her. Yeah. Hopefully in Hawkeye film or film and TV series. David Harbour, I don't think we have talked enough about. I think he's so good. So
he was definitely different in the trailers. I think they made it more.
I thought he was gonna be more he was serious.
Just like, I wouldn't say serious.
Well, I told you I didn't watch any trailers.
I feel like he was gonna be more of like the loving dad, and this is just kind of a dickhead dad. Like, he's just he's not like, he is loving, but he's just more just kind of ignorant. Like, he's not even just that dumb. He's just ignorant. You know.
Yeah, I think he assumes that just because they were young, they see him as a father figure, when it's like, no, they remember all the shitty stuff that he put them.
And they should respect him as a father.
Because they played these roles as like parents to them, and it's like,
even though when he first meets them, he's like, you know, oh my god, that job was so boring.
Yeah, job as in taking care of them during this mission. Yeah, and then what was Rachel? Rachel, whatever her name is. What
her character name was?
Yeah,
Melina.
Yeah, Melina was good in my humble opinion.
Yeah. I just thought like she was just kind of. It just kind of felt like she was restrained. I feel like I feel like maybe like if they ever did like another Marvel movie or property, whatever like that, she would be better in like a bigger role than she was here. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. What stood out to me was I loved whoever choreographed the fighting scenes. Like, the violence was just, it was
very like, Winter Soldier, you know, very just grounded and gritty, and, you know,
The only thing that would have made it better is, I don't know who edited that or who filmed it, but from what I can tell, like, you can tell that it's a good fight. It's just like, it just does like 7 cuts and like, and then it's like going like 360 and like, it's like, I don't know what I'm seeing, but I know it's good.
So it definitely does feel a lot of Daredevil, where they're using like just everything in the environment. You know, it reminded me of was it that one moment when Elena's like in the kitchen sink, she grabs a plate and just smashes it on Scarlet's head. That reminds me of what was it, Daredevil, like one of the earlier episodes where a guy just like comes around the corner and gets a microwave thrown at his head. Like,
that fight was insane. Also, if you can watch this in theaters, definitely do. I always think that theater experiences is totally different.
Because then you're forced to pay attention.
Well, not just forced to pay attention, but like everything is just amplified. You
feel every punch and every sound.
Yeah, Disney Plus can't give you that unless you have a home theater at home.
Yeah, because I went to see what was it, Batman v Superman in IMAX when that movie came out. I saw it for the first time, and I don't like that movie. I'm not a fan of that movie, but the IMAX version of that was so cool and very good. And like that fight scene, the Batman warehouse fight scene, that was so good, because like you felt like when he punched a dude, it was like you felt shockwaves. Like it was like like just, you know. So but yeah, you know, like the fights in here are very good. They're very, you can see especially in that fight in particular, how brutal they were. But some of them did get kind of extreme. I've seen some people compare like the ending stuff to like watching like a Fast and Furious movie, where it just kind of gets so ridiculous.
The third act?
Where it just gets kind of ridiculous to the point where you're just kind of like,
Yeah, I definitely think the first and second act battles are like
like
superior.
Because even like the concept of like just like this free falling, you know, like midair fight scene is like fun. But then you compare it to something like, you haven't seen it, you know, but they did something similar with Iron Man 3, where basically this plane blows up and Iron Man's in it, and you know, he flies out, and then people who were like passengers on the plane are falling, and he has to rescue them, but and there's like 10 of them, so he can't like carry them all at once. And what made that scene so cool is that they actually like did shots of people skydiving. So they actually got people skydiving, and they put in like Iron Man CG in it, and that's what made it so cool, because not only did it feel real, it was real. It was actually people falling. Whereas opposed to this, you just see it, and it was obviously everyone was just CGI.
She's on a cord.
CGI on a green screen or anything like that. So it's like, you know, which I mean, it looks flawless. You know, like the CG in this is like every other Marvel movie. It is pretty much just perfect. Just like one.
Not that helicopter
scene.
Yeah,
not to see with.
If you see it when she's in a
it's all over Twitter. If you follow the Top of the Black Widow, it's that famous clip of her blowing up the plane and her like flying backwards, and it looks just so fake. Like obviously there's some blind spots here and there, and they've had a year of putting this on the shelf, and they didn't bother changing that, so that's kind of a problem. But you know.
So, what did you think of the storyline?
I mean, the storyline's every other Marvel movie. It's you know, we gotta find out who the bad guy is, and you know what the evil plan is, and then underdeveloped kind of bad guy towards the end, and funny quips and jokes along the way. You know, and depending on what the genre of the movie is. You know, it's either it's supposed to be more funny, or it's supposed to be more serious.
I really, really like this film, but I do have to say that I think getting 45 minutes into the movie and then them revealing what their plan, or mostly the plot of the movie, is a downer, or just like...
Get it going.
Yeah, like it was like... so much, like, which, you know,
I mean, it didn't really bother me that much, you know.
No, I felt it. I looked at my phone. Well, I was like, when are we gonna get to it?
It didn't bother me so much because I, you know, I'm kind of used to, you know, movies and shows that, you know, that establish, you know, what these characters are and what they're doing first. And then, you know, when they meet, then the plot
Yeah,
gets
but not
going.
45 minutes deep. Like, that's already, like, it's... How long is Black Widow? Like, 2 hours and, like, typical,
I
like...
think this is 2 hours. I'll look it up, but...
Yeah.
I don't think it's that long.
Yeah, but you're using 45 minutes of it to just, like...
Yeah. It's, 2
what-
hours and 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't really bother me that much. I'm used to slower movies. That's probably why, but... That's your opinion. That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I guess we should talk about, I wouldn't say controversial.
Oh, God, no.
I guess what people want to say is controversial. What do you think of the bad guys in this movie?
Bad guys as in, what's the character's name?
I think that's kind of a problem, but okay. The both of them. Dreykov. Ray Winston, he's a bad guy. Draco Malfoy, whatever you want to call him. Victor Drago. And Taskmaster.
Okay, I'll start off with the easier one. The Dreykov character was a piece of shit.
Well, I guess without saying.
Well, yeah, but I think he did a good job. I mean, obviously, I think it could have been done better. I feel like he played his part, but like he wasn't on screen enough. But like when he was, like I just like couldn't stand him. I think obviously what everyone watched when they're in the Red Room and he's just talking about how these orphan girls, like that's who they used as Black Widows, and that they're disposable, and that, you know, no one's gonna look for. It's just so gut-wrenching. It's so sad, and it's just such a sad reflection of like what goes on in the real world, and it just makes you despise like literally. I was like, beat him up and yeah, like I really wanted him to like suffer. I was like, this the way he goes out is not that's not as
so anticlimactic. It was just he just gets blown up.
Meanwhile, throughout the movie, you're watching him like literally control. You're watching this man control these young women, and then if they don't, you know, if they don't do what they're told, or like they don't satisfy the mission, they get blown up, they get killed. And it's just so...
He's one of those characters where you hear so much about him and like the shit that he's done to these women and just people around the world, and you're just like this guy deserves the biggest ass whooping on the planet. Like, he's just one of the worst people on the planet, and yet he just dies in an explosion. I think like he falls into that category for me of just you know, just generic, like, he's not a businessman, obviously, but, like, just the more, just, like, guy in a suit kind of behind it all business. Because literally, again, you said you haven't seen all the trailers. They literally did not introduce, like, they didn't put him in any of the marketing material. He literally is just on the last poster that was post-COVID. Like, nobody knew that this man was in the movie, or this character was actually in the movie, until literally the half a second glimpse you see of him in the trailer, and on the poster, and it's just like, who the hell is this guy? And then he ends up being the overall villain. It's like, that's kind of you know,
assuming that you guys have seen the movie, like, the whole plot is Yelena and Natasha trying to get to the Red Room so that they can stop,
like, the whole plot is revolved around him.
Yeah, like, stop this man from controlling the Black Widows, and
and aside from like just awkwardly putting him in some random photos of just hanging out with some government officials and like people like fucking Bill Clinton or whatever, it's like you don't see him except for the very end, and that is part of a problem. It's like, you know, like I put him in with like Ronan, the bad guy from the first Guardians movie, which is like, you know, like I can see how he's threatening, but like, you know, like, you're telling me a lot of it, and like I can and like he's acting like you can it is believable that like, oh, I believe that guy did everything that they said that he did, but it's like, you know, like,
no, that guy plays just such a good, like, well, unfortunate.
You played it very cold.
No, you played it very cold, very toxic masculine, very like, I don't give a shit about what I'm doing to these girls. Like, I could care less. Like,
he's just a piece of shit.
No,
that's what he is.
Yeah, and I mean, ooh,
yeah,
it was just hard to watch.
He's not a good guy.
No,
he's not a good person.
Mm-mm.
No.
And then my biggest, and then Taskmaster.
That's his name. Yes.
Taskmaster. I don't understand all of these reviews of fucking hating on this character. I know nothing, so I just went into it. I'm like, oh, I think they did a good job, just to come out and everyone being like, they're the worst.
This is not accurate to the source material.
This ruins, which
this
like
fucking SJW woke. This is ruining my movie.
Okay, well, if it really means that much to you to watch this character and like, you wanted more, I respect that. I get it. I'm just talking from my point of view of just going in blindly, and for what it was, like, I think it was fine.
Yeah. I think for me,
but if you wanted more, then that's also fine too.
I think for me as a comic book fan, like, yes, this is very different from the source material. Like, this, a lot of people point out, this is Taskmaster in name only. It's not the same character at all, like, underneath the mask. Like, it's just, you know, obviously, if you know, it's a spoiler, so we can just talk about it. It's a she. Taskmaster's a she, it's a girl, it's a woman.
The character is a she.
It's a lady. And
her pronouns are she, her.
And her backstory is that she was Dreykov's daughter, who Natasha thought she murdered by trying to blow him up, but she also blew the daughter up when she was like a little girl, and then turned out that she survived and had a bunch of burnt marks, and then her dad just basically turned her into this killing machine. And I think for the story, and I think for the story, it was fine. I'm fine with changes as long as it makes sense for the movie that you're watching, and I think in that sense it's fine. Because they did something pretty similar like this in Iron Man 3 with a twist on the villain, but I think, again, like, I think it's valid for people who actually do like this character. That if you do like this character, then, you know, you probably wouldn't be happy that they changed literally every aspect of this character except for the name, kind of the way she looks, and the abilities. Because other than those three things, this is not Taskmaster, and I think that it is valid to be mad about that. But if you're just mad about it because it's a lady, just
grow up.
Who gives a shit? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, like it's one thing if they like just changed, you know, something like if they changed, you know, say like Black Widow's like gender, obviously, because they did try to point that she's a woman, but like,
I think it just goes to show just like how much more disturbing the Dreykov character is, that he's used like once again, like once again he like doesn't even give a shit about his own daughter, that he turns her into one like a killing machine and just like doesn't and it uses it for his own purposes.
And it fits into the theme of Natasha's arc, which is, you know, just the idea of, you know, not running from her past, and, you know, and accepting the things that she did and stuff like that. I think that's like it fits the point of the movie and the arc, and I think that is completely fine. You know, I think in that sense it's fine. But I do understand why people are mad, in the sense of like, this is not Taskmaster. Because it isn't. Like, it isn't. But if you really are just mad that they turned a guy villain into a girl, then, which is, you know, admittedly, you know, there are plenty of people who think like that, then it's just like, you know, like literally, you know, we just watched a video of somebody talk about it, and it's just like, you know, like, they brought up a good point, which is just like, literally, other than they are a woman. Nothing about this character screams to, like, girl power or whatever the fuck. Like, it's just, she's a woman. That's it. Like,
what? Okay.
I mean, like, like what they would complain about, like, they're just shoving SJW wokeness in my face. They're trying to say she's badass because she's just a woman. And it's like, no, it's like, she was forced to. Like,
for the record, women in general are just badasses. But yeah, I think we're all over the place with this, but
it's fine on the structure in any way. But it's just, So I wouldn't say it didn't bother me that much, like to the point where it's a negative. I understand. Like, it was just one moment where I was kind of like, okay, that's fine. It didn't wow me.
They struck fear in my heart. Fuck, I was like, oh, someone is like, literally that moment when David Harbour and like is talking to Melina or whatever her name is, and it's just like, I want to break something, and she's just like, there's something you can break, and I'm like, no, like, get out. Like, I don't know why. Because I'm like, they follow a formula of like, they're not going to get their ass handed to them that bad. But I'm like, ooh, like.
I feel for me, it just wasn't, at least for me anyway, just didn't feel quite enough. I would have liked to see more.
That's fine.
I would like to see more of them doing more stuff. Because literally, like, again, other than the occasional, like, oh, she does the same flips as Black Widow, or she throws the shield like Captain America one time, or she shoots one bow and arrow, or or she takes the claws out like Black Panther, but then doesn't use them. It's like, it's kind of like,
sure,
missed opportunity there, I think. And then for the rest of the movie, she just uses a sword, and we haven't met a character who uses a sword yet, so it's just kind of like, oh, they're just using a sword. Like,
right.
So.
I want to talk about the dinner scene.
The dinner scene?
The dinner scene.
Where they're all talking and,
when they're all over that cliche, like, family, like,
Natasha, don't slouch.
They're not a family, but they're clearly, like, doing typical family dinner bickering, yeah. And
David Harbour saying he has lots of sexual energy after being in prison.
Disgusting.
Lots of energy.
Stop with the Russian accent. What just like broke my heart was definitely Florence Pugh's acting. Like that, like I was close to tears. I was like, that girl got mommy issues, daddy issues. Like, it's just so sad to watch that unfold. No, like, imagine really, like, being put in what she's going through. Like, she is younger. She has to be tough for the sake of surviving. And, she reunites with these people that she genuinely thought that, like, were her family. She had connections with, just for, like, to be told that, like, David Harbour is like, yeah, you were like such a fucking chore.
Annoying little shit.
You were just a chore for me. Melina's like, I was just doing my job. And then Natasha's like,
it was never real.
It was never real. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I would cry too.
Why?
Yeah, like, I would cry too. That's so mean.
Why you be so mean?
You don't, like, that didn't do anything for you.
I mean,
as soon as I saw the lip pouting, I'm like, oh, here we go. We're gonna get some good acting out of her. I mean, she's already a good actress, but I'm like, the face for any Florence Pugh fans. That face, like, she's about to drop some, like, some truth.
I mean, for me, that's just kind of, I mean, obviously struck a nerve with you, but for me, it was just, it's the character's downtime,
Oh yeah, well, yeah, everybody knows that. I mean, it just comes across so good to me. Yeah, like it's not like it's fun. Yeah. She's. It definitely plays into that, like, I mean.
I think it's just because, like, at this point, it's so weird that it literally came out, like, a week or two after Fast and Furious 9, because, like, the themes of both those movies are obviously family, like, just, like, just,
Don't do your weird voice. Don't do your weird voice.
Well,
no.
Everything's about family and all that stuff, like, just, you get it. Like, I think that's why it's just kind of, you know, like, it was fine to me. It wasn't.
No, but
you know,
I think it's different because, like, I mean, like I said, I didn't know much about this character. So, like, when I was first watching the introduction, like, I caught on, obviously, eventually, that they're all spies.
Yeah.
But at first, I genuinely thought that that was her family. So I think that's why it hit, like, with me watching.
Well, because I think in
Florence
that
Pugh
sense
played Yelena, and then because I feel like I'm like, oh god.
Because I think it is just, or at least for me anyway, like I knew from the comic books, like the relationships Natasha has with these people are all different.
Yeah.
And like, you know, they obviously just made this up for the movie, so it's like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just because like in the books, like David Harbour is actually like the same age as all of them, and like he's like technically like Natasha's like ex-husband.
Ew.
And
Huh?
yeah, and Yelena is like supposed to actually be like the same age as her, and they were just basically like, it's the same idea where they were both part of the spy program, but it's not really a younger sister dynamic. It's more of a like rival dynamic. Like, you know, they were both brought up at the same time, and they just,
Right.
you know, they're rival Black Widows essentially.
Gotcha.
And then Melina in the books is just a bad guy. So
Yeah.
So I'm fine with the changes there because obviously it fit the movie, but like, you know, it wasn't, you know, obviously it wasn't, you know, I'm not mad that, you know, Melina didn't have her Iron Maiden mask or whatever. I'm not, they showed it in the back, and like, they put it as a fun Easter egg, but you know, it wasn't a make or break for me. I didn't really care because I literally know, other than like the basics of these characters, that's like all I know essentially of them. But you know, it's not really, you know, so in that sense, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, you know, even though I understand it's different from the books, like, I just kind of saw that coming, especially from watching all the trailer stuff of that. You get the idea that, like, oh, this movie's about family. What's your real family?
Well, yeah.
Because she has two families. She has this family and then the Avengers.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not a big fan of, like, that kind of reveal in movies of, like, like, we stick together, or like where we gotta,
what David Harbour says, where he's just like, we're family, we fight with you.
Yeah, like we're family, and it's just like, y'all don't act like one. And
Diesel shows up.
Stop. No, he doesn't.
You see all those memes?
No, and I don't care to.
They're so funny. They're so funny. It's literally just Vin Diesel popping up out.
Yeah.
Like,
but definitely the themes of this movie and Florence Pugh's character really, really hit home, and made me give this movie a good rating for a reason. I understand what everyone else is saying about this movie is too late, or the inaccuracy, or just like the jokes don't land, or like whatever. Like if that's, you know, you didn't enjoy it, or you like didn't think it reached its full potential, like that's fine. But I saw it, like I want to watch it again. And
can we talk about the most memorable character in the entire movie? Her friend that gives her stuff.
Oh, poor man.
Do you even know his name? Do you know his name?
No.
His character's name is Rick Mason.
Rick Mason.
He's also known as the Agent. This poor guy, he went to Comic-Con as, like, you know, being talked about as if he's like part of the full cast, which he really isn't. He shows up 3 times the entire movie, each like 2 minutes long.
He was Natasha's dealer.
He
just like
literally just shows up. He's just like,
I got
anything else?
stuff.
So he's just like, it's fine. He's like, okay, and just leaves.
Yeah, I could definitely tell that.
Like, because I think the thing is that I think actually he just talked about it. He apparently, when he auditioned for this movie, he auditioned for a very different role, and I think the idea was that he was supposed to be Taskmaster, and that's like at least what he auditioned for. But then, like, you know, they're like, okay, thank you, like, you know, like, thank you for audition, like, you know, like, we'll definitely consider you for this movie. And he was like, oh, so, you know, basically got it. And then at one point he like got involved in this other project that he was very like, you know, like all in for, I think on Hulu or something. And then he was like, you know, like, oh man, like I don't know if the schedule's gonna be conflicted or whatever. And then he called back. He was like, hey, you know, like, do you think I'm gonna be able to do this? And he was like, oh no, like we put your role is like very different. Like, you know, like
we
like,
downgraded you.
Yeah, we downgraded. Like you're fine. So a lot of people think that that he was supposed to be Taskmaster, and then they probably changed it for the reveal. Because like other than that, because like when you put him in the because when this movie was first announced, they put him up with the Comic-Con panel or whatever like that. He's the only one that's like a character that like we know who everybody else is supposed to be. He's the only one that like sticks out like a sore thumb. And in a movie where you're supposed to be like, oh man, who's this guy? Who's the Taskmaster? It's like, you know, like, oh my god, like it's obviously the guy who also has, you know, his own character, or not even, you know, like he's just a character. He's just there, and he does nothing else. And I think for this, they just threw him off. I think it was just I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. It's just it's like I don't know.
He was whatever for me. I mean, no, like
he's fine.
He was fine. He was
just
enjoyable.
There.
He's just a side character.
I think it was just what's annoying is that he literally gets his own character poster. Like
they
literally act like he
like
literally the main bad guy in this doesn't even have his own character poster, and like, you know, but yet, you know, I think that's another thing that leads to the whole Taskmaster problem. It's just, you know, that like they marketed the shit out of that character as like, you know, like the bad guy in this movie, and even then she's barely in it. Like, you know, she shows up a few times, and you know,
I'm just really sad that this is the only movie we're gonna get with, or the last movie we'll get with Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. Like, I feel so annoyed that all her other male coworkers get like 3 movies, and hers comes late as hell, and it's a one and done. And there's no justice for her, really. We can all say like this movie's out, like but they
did make it.
They did make it, but like some things are just a little too late because everybody is just like, oh, this wasn't as enjoyable because we know what her fate is within the universe,
which is smacking on the ground, smacking on concrete.
Oh, no.
Jammer Renner, just slippy fingers.
It's
got butterfingers.
Yeah,
they were
butterfingers were like...
They were funny for the last butterfinger, and he got his fingers became too butterfingery, and he slipped.
Yeah.
She fell and she smacked.
No, that's not how it went.
I think that's pretty sure how it went. I don't know. I think I've seen the movie more than you. I think I would know. It's definitely because of butterfingers.
But yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts, guys, but it's
not really pertained.
It's not pertained to the movie.
About the movie? It's about the outside of the movie.
It's about the criticism that this movie is getting from particularly male audiences that I have a problem with.
The people who we talked about earlier.
Not really much else to say, but because I was in such bliss after the movie, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm really excited to hear other people's, and I still am, like, for what it is. I'm excited to hear about what other people think about it, but like it's just an overwhelming amount of just shitting on this movie. I don't
think it's nearly as bad as when Captain Marvel.
Oh well, yeah, no, not at all.
I think that was
not at all. But
there were so many.
But these two, but Black Widow and Captain Marvel is like in its own realm of like unjustly criticism.
I think
compared to like all the other films.
The other day, and I just think, you know, like, I think getting mad at these people, you know, like it is fine to get mad at these people who are like that, but at the same time, you know, like no matter when they would have released this movie, it would still get the same, like these same people would still be reacting this way. And at that point, it's just kind of like, you know, you're more or less expecting it, and right, you know, like they're literally like in the same, you know, like literally in Falcon and Winter Soldier in the episode when they did a parallel of, you know, cops, you know, racial profiling Sam Wilson, you know, and stuff like that. Like there's literally so many videos that came out that same day of like, you know, like Disney Plus ratings are tanking because they introduce SJW stuff, and it's just like shows plummet because if people watch the first episode and weren't interested, ratings go down. Like, you know,
Right.
it's not, you know, it's the same for every TV show. Everybody watches the beginning episode, the middle episode, and the last episode of every season, like the same amount. Everything else in between is like in the pits. I don't know what else you're expecting. Like,
no, but overall, I really liked it. I liked it enough that I would watch it again. Not $30 Disney Plus version, but like...
Yeah. If you can watch it in the theater, if you're vaccinated, watch it in the theater. It's good.
Yeah.
It's definitely a Marvel movie. If you like Marvel movies, you'll definitely have a good time. If you're not a fan of Marvel movies, I don't think this will change your opinion, but...
I think you'll be lost. Well, not lost.
No, no one said this. This is very standalone. Compared to other Marvel stuff, like this is not Infinity War in terms of like, you should probably know at least a few of these characters beforehand.
I take it back.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
Yeah, I think for Black Widow, I think
cut that out.
Fine. You're fine. No, I'll leave it in.
No.
No, it's fine.
No.
No. No, I think for this you'll be fine. If you don't know anything about the character, you're fine. Just if you have Disney Plus, just go on the Disney, you know, this Marvel Legends show, whatever like that. It's like 11-minute recap. Just watch that. You'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
But other than that, yeah. So.
What do we rate it?
What do we rate it? I would give it a low 8 out of 10, like a firm 8 out of 10. I think for me, like it's not quite as like I definitely think without the additional like, you know, like human trafficking elements and like all that sort of stuff and like the abuse of women in this movie, I think that elevated it up a point. I think if it weren't without that, then it would have been like another, you know, generic Marvel movie, like 6 to 7 out of 10. But I think all that elevates it up a point. And I do like everybody in the cast. I think everybody was, you know, very well acted in it and stuff like that. I think that's what brings it an 8 for me. But I wouldn't push it past an 8 for me.
Gotcha.
I think for me, positives are obviously all the cast are great, across the board. The action's fun. It can be a bit numbing at times, but overall, it's fun. Dumb action, you know. There's literally action. There's literally a scene where guys are free falling and they're trying to shoot a plane down while they're free falling, and then one lands on the plane, and then David Harbour picks up a shield and throws the shield out the windshield, and the guy flies out from said plane.
I'm sure.
It's pretty dumb, but it's fun. It's definitely a fun movie. It's definitely more the serious side of Marvel. So if you're definitely if you're more of a Captain America Winter Soldier person, this is definitely more appealing to you. If you're more of a Thor Ragnarok or Guardians person, then, you know, like, it's up to you. It's up to you. But overall, I really did enjoy this movie. You know, that's probably about it for me.
Nice.
What about you?
I give it a 9.
9 out of 10.
What?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. I loved it. I thoroughly loved... I'm loss of words. No, yeah, I'm just piggybacking on what you said. Just, I like the characters. I like the villains.
I think that's probably the one negative for me. I think it's just the villains. I think for me, you know, I think in terms of like memorability of Marvel villains, they're more or less, like they are probably more memorable than most. Like I would say they're more memorable than like fucking Yellow Jacket from Ant-Man or the Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. But like, you know, they still fall into, you know, just that simple, you know, just guy in a suit and big bad guy who doesn't really have a personality. Like, to me, Taskmaster is it's literally, it is weird how similar this character is to Winter Soldier, but Winter Soldier, you know, they do play with that character more in that sense, if you understand what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, solid 8, but closer to a 9 for me, so I give it a 9.
Okay. So, all right. That's it. That's our show. That's our first episode. If you want to listen to more, we'll definitely be back next week. We don't know what we'll be talking about, but maybe it'll be Loki. Maybe it'll be something else. We're thinking maybe doing Luca. We don't know. But if you really enjoyed this episode, you know, please subscribe. Give us a like or something if you want.
A dislike.
Our letterbox descriptions will be in the description below. I'll try to have this up on Spotify and Apple Podcast and
wherever you prefer to
whatever
listen.
You prefer to listen to, yes. So, wherever you want to listen to on there, that's where you can probably find us. My name is Sam.
And I'm Araceli.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.